The Union Hall was brighter than usual. Lights reflected off polished metal walls, and the flags of many planets hung from the high ceiling. The wide circular chamber was filled with voices. From every corner of the galaxy, delegates stood in groups, talking quietly, sharing updates, and preparing for the arrival of a powerful guest. Today was the day the Therix Empire's lead diplomat would arrive. Diplomat Vale was known across many systems, tall, sharp-eyed, and dressed in silver armor woven with dark cloth. She was the face of Therix power. She did not smile, did not joke, and never backed down. Her race believed in strength, order, and control. For years, they had expanded their influence across 10 systems. Their presence at any meeting meant decisions would be pushed in their favor. Vale believed that others existed to either serve or stay out of her way. As she entered the hall, voices quieted. The sound of her boots on the floor echoed like a command. Her guards stood behind her, silent and still. She walked with her chin high, her eyes scanning the crowd like she was looking at children. To her, most races were slow, soft, and weak. That included humans. Earth had recently joined the Union, still young, still learning, and still earning its place. Humans were often overlooked. Their ideas were considered simple, their voices quiet. Some delegates even forgot their names. But not all humans were silent. Daniel stood near the edge of the room, watching Vel's entrance. He was not tall or heavily built. He wore a plain gray suit, held a small data tablet, and stayed out of the center. He had no special title. He was not a general, not a scientist, and not a politician. He had been trained as a mediator, someone who listened more than he spoke, someone who noticed things others ignored. This was his first time at a full Union gathering. His job was to observe, learn, and report back to Earth's growing leadership team. He had no plan to stand out. That changed when Vale began to speak. After her arrival, the Union chair welcomed everyone and invited short statements from each attending world. Most gave simple greetings or updates. When Earth's turn came, a woman named Minna offered a short speech about Earth's progress in trade and cooperation. She was careful with her words, respectful and hopeful. When she finished, Vale spoke loudly from across the room. Earth offers progress, she said, her voice strong. But from what? Your planet was isolated for most of its history. You only recently stepped beyond your orbit. And now you speak of trade like you have something to offer. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. Minna tried to reply, but Vale raised her hand. I did not say this to insult you, she continued. It is simply truth. Therix has given more to the Union than Earth could give in 10 lifetimes. We do not pretend to be equal. We bring strength, not dreams. Daniel looked around. No one spoke. The silence was heavy. He could see Minna lowering her head slightly. She was trying not to respond. Daniel stepped forward. With respect, he said in a calm voice, every member of the Union has the right to speak without being dismissed. Earth joined this council through proper process. If what we offer is small, it still belongs to us. Vale turned slowly. Her eyes met his. For a few seconds, she said nothing. And who are you? She asked, her voice quieter but colder. Daniel, he replied, observer from Earth. You are not a speaker, not a leader. Why do you interrupt? I did not interrupt, Daniel said. I answered. The room went quiet again. Even Minna looked surprised. A few delegates watched closely, waiting to see what Vale would do. Vale stared at him, eyes narrowing. Then she gave a small nod. So Earth sends a man who thinks words are enough. We shall see how far that takes you. She turned and walked toward her seat. The moment passed, but it left a mark. After the meeting, some delegates came to Daniel. A few thanked him quietly. One said he had never seen anyone respond to Vale like that without being shouted down. Daniel just nodded. He wasn't proud or angry. He simply believed no one should be spoken to like that, not Earth, not anyone. Vale's words continued to spread. In the halls, in small rooms, in quiet messages between ships, people spoke about her arrogance. But more importantly, they spoke about the human who answered her with calm strength. Back in her quarters, Vale sat alone. She did not forget faces easily. She could remember every general who had bowed to her, every senator who had feared her tone. But this human had not bowed. He had not shouted. He had stood up, without blinking. The next morning, the Union Hall was quieter. Talks continued, but the mood had shifted. Everyone remembered what happened during the last session. A human had spoken up to Vale, the Therix diplomat, and she had not crushed him. It was a surprise. Some thought it was a mistake. Others thought it was the beginning of something new. Daniel sat alone in a side chamber. He sipped a plain cup of tea and read through the next meeting's documents. He made no comment about the previous day. He didn't enjoy attention. He didn't speak just to be heard. He had spoken because it was necessary. Minna, the lead human diplomat, joined him. You shouldn't have stepped in yesterday, she said gently. Daniel closed the file. Maybe not, but I don't like bullies. She's not just a bully. She's Vale. You understand who she is, right? Daniel nodded. I do. But that doesn't make her right. Before Minna could say more, a loud tone rang through the chamber. It was time to return to the main hall. Today's topic was trade agreements between the outer planets and core systems. Most planets offered goods, resources, or rare tech. Earth had a new offer, a unique material found only in one deep region of their oceans. The humans had prepared a simple presentation, clear points, fair pricing. The material wasn't as rare as some other planets' resources, but it was useful and safe to extract. Minna stepped forward and began the presentation. She showed how Earth's material could help in ship cooling systems and how it was more stable than older compounds. She explained that humans were offering open trade without strict control. The offer was meant to build trust. For a moment, the room was still. Some nodded. A few aliens whispered with their teams. Then Vale stood. Her voice cut across the chamber. This is not a gift, she said. This is a trap. The room turned toward her. Therix has used stronger cooling materials for decades. If Earth's product is better, it should be placed under shared control. It should not belong to Earth alone. No young world should own something the rest of us depend on. Minna stayed calm. Union law says trade goods belong to the planet that extracts them. That includes Earth. Vale raised her chin. Then perhaps the law needs to change. She turned toward the council. I call for a special vote. Let us place this material under Union guidance. Let Therix lead the distribution. It will ensure balance. Whispers turned into louder voices. A special vote was serious. It could shift control quickly, and if Therix controlled the material, Earth will lose its first real place in the trade network. Daniel stood. There will be no vote. He said quietly. Everyone looked at him. Vale narrowed her eyes. You do not decide that. No, Daniel replied. But the rules do. He lifted his data tablet. To request a special vote, you must give full notice 1 cycle before the proposal. That means today's vote is not legal. Silence. Follow. Daniel continued. Also, the item in question is not vital to life support, medical function, or planetary safety. It is a trade material. That means its ownership cannot be transferred without Earth's agreement. Vale stared at him, her hands resting behind her back. You've studied the laws, she said. I've read them, Daniel answered. Have you? A quiet laugh came from one of the outer delegates. Another one nodded in support. The Union chair confirmed Daniel's points. The vote was blocked. Earth kept its rights. Vale returned to her seat without another word. But her jaw was tight. After the session, the corridors buzzed with quiet talks. Some delegates from smaller planets approached Daniel. They thanked him. They said Therix had pressured them for years, one said. We never pushed back because we thought no one else would. Daniel listened, but he didn't celebrate. He had not come to fight. He had come to learn. But now he understood that silence was not always the wise choice. Sometimes, silence helped the powerful stay unchallenged. In a private chamber above the hall, Vale stood near a window. She looked out across the city, her hands behind her back. One of her aides approached carefully. He embarrassed you, the aide said. No, Vale replied. He exposed something. What? My mistake. Vale closed her eyes for a moment. I believed Earth would bow. I expected silence. But that human spoke clearly. He followed the law, not emotion. That is rare. The 8 frowned. Shall we respond with pressure? Vale turned. No, pressure works only on the fearful. That one does not fear me. Not yet. In the days that followed, the Union Hall stayed busy. Delegates moved from one session to another, discussing new policies, trade routes, and shared defense. But beneath all the normal activity, something else was happening. Quiet tension had begun to grow. It wasn't between planets. It was between one human and one Therix. Everyone had seen how Daniel had stopped Vel's attempt to take Earth's resource. They had heard how calmly he had used the law. It had surprised many. Therix usually got their way. But this time, they hadn't, and Vale had not forgotten. She started to test Daniel in small ways. During open discussions, she would bring up confusing clauses from old treaties and ask for his opinion. At social meals, she would speak about Earth's limited mind and ask Daniel if he agreed. Her tone stayed cold but polite. She didn't insult him directly. Instead, she wrapped her words in rules and tradition. Daniel understood the game. She was trying to make him slip. She wanted him to lose control, to make a mistake, or to speak out of turn. But he didn't. He answered each question with calm words. When she asked something tricky, he replied with facts. When she made strange comments, he ignored the bait. He kept his voice level and his answers short. Others noticed this too. One evening, during a shared dinner for Union guests, the tension became clear to everyone. The hall was decorated with lights from 6 planets. Foods from across the galaxy were placed on long tables. The chairs were arranged in circles so people could share stories and customs. A few delegates stood up to show dances or songs from their worlds. Daniel sat near the back. He was watching, not speaking. Then Vale stepped forward. She raised a glass and addressed the hall. Today we celebrate unity, she said, and we must learn from each other. Let us play a small game of truth. I will ask a question. Each person I name must answer honestly. Let us begin with Earth's observer. She turned and looked at Daniel. Tell us, she said, what is Earth's greatest weakness? The room became quiet. Everyone waited. Daniel stood slowly. He looked at Vale, then at the rest of the hall. Our weakness, he said, is that we trust too quickly. We open our doors before we know what's outside. We hope for peace even when others prepare for control. A few heads nodded. It was an honest answer. But Daniel wasn't done. But it is also our strength. We learn quickly. We grow when others expect us to remain still. We believe in fairness even when we are treated without it. He looked at Vale. And we speak the truth even when it's not comfortable. Vale gave a small nod, a safe answer. No, Daniel said. Just an honest one. Another silence followed. Then someone clapped, others joined. The tension faded, but only for the moment. That night, Vale returned to her chamber. She stood alone, thinking. Her aide entered. You tried to expose him. He did not break. Vale answered without turning. He understands power. Not the kind made by ships or armies. A different kind. The kind that listens but does not bend. You will challenge him again. Yes, she said. But not yet. Meanwhile, Daniel walked the quiet halls of the station. He did not smile. He did not feel like a winner. He felt the weight of what he had started. He had meant to be in the center. But now, eyes were on him. Other small worlds were watching him. Some now waited for him to speak before they spoke. That was a heavy thing. He met Minna near the lift. You're becoming something more than an observer, she said. Daniel shook his head. I didn't ask for that. Sometimes we don't ask. But we're still given the place. She'll push again, Daniel said. Yes, Minna replied. But now others are watching, and they've seen something different. Daniel nodded. Let's make sure they keep seeing it. Back inside the council records, a report was logged. Small planets listed Earth as a new partner for future talks. One even suggested Earth help lead a shared project. These were not large changes, but they were signs. And in her quarters, Vale began to read Earth's early writings. Books, speeches, documents about human laws and human wars. She didn't trust them, but she wanted to understand why one man had become so hard to silence. She closed one file and whispered, "Understanding the enemy is the first step. But what if the enemy doesn't want to fight?" The lights dimmed, the room grew quiet, and the game between them continued. The Union Hall was quiet in the early hours of the day. The main meeting had not started yet, but whispers were already spreading through its long corridors. Something unusual was about to happen. Delegates moved faster than normal, sharing quick messages with their aides. Documents were being reviewed. Screens flickered with alerts. Diplomat Vale had called for a vote. She had submitted a full proposal late in the night. It looked simple at first, a trade document, focused on routes through outer regions. But when other members read it closely, they found hidden clauses. One clause gave the Therics control over several neutral trade zones. Another would allow them to place inspection teams on ships without approval. The changes were deep and dangerous. If passed, it would shift power toward the Therics Empire, and Earth would lose access to half its new routes. Most believed the vote was planned to catch others off guard. Daniel arrived at the hall and took his seat next to Minna. She placed a data tablet in front of him. "She's moving fast," Minna said. "She's counting on confusion." Daniel nodded. "How long do we have?" "Less than 1 hour." Daniel opened the document. His eyes scanned the text carefully. He took a breath and began to mark each section with quiet notes. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't panic. He just read as the hour passed. More delegates entered the chamber. The room filled slowly, but the tension was rising. Some looked tired, others looked unsure. The Therics group sat together in silence. Vale stood at the center, tall and calm. Her silver robe caught the light. She held a small control tablet in one hand. When the chair called the session to order, Vale stepped forward. "The Therics Empire presents a plan for better safety and stronger control over trade routes. This proposal ensures order. It allows Union resources to move without delay. It avoids confusion." She didn't mention Earth. She didn't mention inspections. She kept her words clean and smooth. She finished and looked toward the chair. "Let us vote." Before the chair could respond, Daniel stood. With respect, he said, "I would like to speak before the vote begins." Vale turned toward him slowly. Her face showed no emotion. "You have the floor," the chair said. Daniel walked forward and turned to face the hall. "The Therics proposal has been written well." He began. "The words sound safe, but I asked the council to look closely." He lifted his own tablet and connected it to the main screen. A large image appeared, showing part of the document. "This section," Daniel said, "gives Therics the power to place their officers on ships from any planet. That passes through certain lanes. That includes Earth and many others." He moved to the next section. "This part removes the need for Union approval before inspections. It removes the voice of smaller members." He paused. The room was silent. "I do not stand here to accuse," Daniel said. "I stand to protect the Union law. No world should gain power by hiding words inside agreements." He looked around the chamber. "Do not vote because of fear. Do not vote because of habit. Vote because you understand." He stepped back. Vale remained standing. Her eyes stayed on him. She raised her tablet again. "The human misunderstands," she said. "This is not control. This is protection. Therics is strong. We use our strength to serve the Union." Daniel responded without moving. "Then you will not mind rewriting the agreement to make it fair." Another silence. It was clear now. The vote would not go her way. The chair called the vote. One by one, the delegates pressed their keys. Lights blinked across the room. The result came in. The proposal had failed. Not a single world supported it. Vale closed her tablet slowly. She returned to her seat. Her face showed nothing, but her silence said more than words could. After the session, delegates came to Daniel. Some clapped him on the shoulder. Others offered to support Earth's trade requests. The mood had changed. Confidence in Earth was growing. Minna smiled. "You did it again." Daniel nodded. "She'll try something else next time, yes?" Minna said. "But now she knows people are watching." Later that evening, Daniel walked through the quiet garden chamber. The stars were visible through the glass ceiling. He stopped to think, away from the noise and politics. Then he heard footsteps. Vale approached, alone. "There are no cameras here," she said. Daniel turned. "I know." Vale stood beside him, looking up at the stars. "You were ready for the vote." "Yes." "You read every word." "I had to." Vale's voice was low. "You could have stayed silent. You could have let it pass. Many would have." Daniel looked at her. "But it would have been wrong." Vale didn't reply for a moment. Then she said, "Therix has led many times. We are used to being followed. Maybe it's time to listen," Daniel said. Vale's face showed a flicker of something new. Not anger, not pride, just thought. "I will not forget this," she said. Daniel nodded. "Neither will I." As she walked away, Daniel stood still, watching the stars above. The turning point had come. The Therix no longer ruled by fear in the council. One man, calm and steady, had stood in their way, and others had followed. The days following the failed vote moved slower than usual in the Union Hall. Delegates walked with more care. Conversations were quieter. It felt like something had shifted. Even though no one said it out loud, the Therix had always been respected. But now, respect had turned into quiet distance. Their influence was no longer automatic. Other planets had started to speak more freely, to question more openly. Daniel's name was being passed through private channels, not as a hero, but as a symbol of quiet resistance. Back in his temporary quarters, Daniel sat near a small desk. Going through reports, trade discussions were restarting, and several smaller planets had invited Earth to become part of new routes. Earth had gone from being ignored to being included, but Daniel felt no pride. He felt the weight of his actions. What he had done was simple in words but difficult in effect. A soft tone rang through the room. The screen lit up. Incoming request. Vale of Thar-IX. Daniel paused. He tapped the accept key. A message appeared. No video. Just text. "Meet me in the outer garden chamber. Now. Alone." Daniel stood up, slipped on his coat, and walked through the quiet halls. No guards followed. He passed glowing lights, smooth metal walls, and wide, empty corridors. The garden chamber was at the far end of the station, rarely visited this late. At night, he stepped inside. The room was quiet, filled with tall trees and soft lights. Artificial wind moved gently between the leaves. A small pond in the center reflected the ceiling of stars. Vale stood near the water. She turned as he entered. "I did not come here to argue," she said. "Then why did you ask me to come?" Daniel asked calmly. "To speak, without counsel. Rules, without others watching." Daniel nodded and walked closer, stopping a few steps away from her. Vale looked at the pond. "You have changed how others see us," she said. "The small worlds no longer fear our voice. That is not a small thing." Daniel kept his tone quiet. "It was never about power. It was about fairness." "To you," Vale replied. "But to us, fairness is weakness. For many years, we believe that strength must lead, that those who are stronger should decide what is best." She paused. "But now, I wonder if we've misunderstood strength." Daniel looked at her. "Maybe strength is knowing when not to use it." Vale did not reply right away. She stepped closer to the pond, her hands behind her back. "You spoke to me without fear," she said. "Not once, but many times. You did not raise your voice. You did not use force. Yet, you stopped me." "I didn't stop you," Daniel said. "The law did. I just followed it." "No," Vale replied. "You reminded others of it. That's different. You gave them reason to stand beside you. Before you, they would not have spoken." Daniel looked at her carefully. She seemed different, less guarded, less sharp. Her voice was still firm, but it carried something else: thoughtfulness. "You're not the same as you were when you first arrived," Daniel said. Vale gave a slow nod. "I came expecting silence. I believed Earth would be eager to please, that your kind would thank us for notice. But you didn't bow. You didn't retreat." She turned and looked directly at him. "Why?" Daniel thought for a moment. "Because I believe in what Earth stands for. We came here not to serve or rule, but to build something better. That starts with truth." Vale held his gaze for a few seconds. Then she walked to a nearby bench and sat down. She looked tired, not physically, but deep within. Daniel sat on the opposite side of the bench. My people will not accept change easily, she said. They do not want to follow. They want to lead. Then lead in a better way, Daniel said. Show them that leadership can listen, that strength can serve. Vale gave a small breath. Not a sigh, not quite. Just a quiet release of thought. If I showed weakness, she said, I would lose everything. Daniel shook his head. You haven't shown weakness. You've shown control. You didn't lash out. You chose this meeting. That's not weakness. That's leadership. Vale sat still. Her hands rested calmly on her knees. For a moment, there was silence again. Then she stood. I cannot change Therix in one day, she said. No one is asking you to, Daniel replied. But it starts with one step. Vale looked at him one last time. Thank you for speaking to me honestly. Thank you for listening. Daniel replied. She walked out of the chamber without another word. Daniel stayed behind, staring at the pond. The stars above shone quietly. That night, a private report was sent from Therix headquarters. It said nothing about failure. It spoke of strategy, of watching Earth more closely, of studying their diplomacy. But between the lines, there was a shift, a pause in the usual tone. And across the Union, other leaders began to see Therix in a new way, not just as a power, but as a power that could change. Not because of war, not because of threat, because one human had spoken truth, and one alien had listened. The following week felt different inside the Union Hall. There was no announcement, no celebration, but everyone could feel the change in the air. Delegates who had once stayed quiet now spoke more clearly. Small worlds who used to avoid eye contact with the Therix were now asking questions, giving suggestions, even disagreeing in open sessions. Had started with one voice, Daniel's, and it was spreading. He had not given speeches. He had not led with emotion. He had simply followed the law, spoken with respect, and stood firm. That quiet courage had left a deep mark. The Therix delegation had noticed. Inside their private chamber, Vale stood at the head of the table. Her assistants waited, expecting another strong declaration or new strategy. But today, Vale's voice was slower, more thoughtful. Daniel has made Earth a symbol, she said, one that others are beginning to follow. And Aide spoke. We can still take control. We can use stronger proposals, offer trade deals that make them choose us again. Vale shook her head. If we use pressure now, we will only lose more. They are not afraid anymore. We must show a new side of Therix, one that understands what this union truly means. Another aide asked, Do you mean we compromise? I mean we adapt, Vale replied. The room stayed silent. For the first time, the Therix leadership was not planning to dominate. They were planning to participate. At the same time, Daniel sat across a round table with 4 diplomats from other systems. They had invited him to help draft a new code for smaller trade routes. The code would protect minor planets from being blocked or overcharged by larger powers. This would have been unthinkable weeks ago. One of the diplomats, an older being from the Cyroan sector, leaned forward. You are not what we expected from Earth. He said, We thought your people would try to impress us with power. Daniel smiled slightly. We're new to space. We don't have much power yet, but we know what unfairness looks like. We've lived with it before. The Cyroan delegate nodded. And now, others are watching you. Some even want Earth to co-lead this proposal. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then he said, We're willing to help, but no one should lead alone. That answer was shared quietly between systems. Word spread that Earth was not only fair, but wise. Later that evening, another meeting was called. This time, Vale herself requested it. It was not a major vote. It was not about power. It was a discussion about education exchange between planets. Years ago, the Therix had blocked such programs, saying their ways should not be shared. But now, Vale stood and made a different offer. Therix will open 3 of its learning centers to Union students, she said. We will also send our scholars to learn from other systems, including Earth. A long pause followed. One of the older council members raised a brow. That is unexpected. Vale nodded. It is time we understand, not only teach. Minna turned to Daniel. She whispered, "Did you expect this?" "No," Daniel said softly. "But I'm glad." The chair approved the proposal. No one voted against it. The meeting ended with calm voices, quiet agreement, and something even more rare, hope. After the session, Vale approached Daniel in the corridor. "You did not speak during the meeting." She said, "You didn't need me to." Daniel replied. Vale gave a small nod. "Tell me something," she said. "Why do your people try to be kind when strength is faster?" Daniel thought for a moment. "Because kindness lasts longer," he answered. "And because we've seen what happens when only strength leads. We've made those mistakes. We're still learning, but we don't want to repeat them in space." Vale looked at him carefully. "You said something like that before, but now I believe you meant it." "I did," Daniel said. She looked around the quiet corridor. Then she said, "You have changed the Union. Maybe more than you know." Daniel shook his head. "I didn't do it alone. Others were just waiting for someone to show that it was possible." She turned to walk away, then paused. "There was a time," she said, "when I would have crushed your planet's voice with one sentence. And now?" Daniel asked. "Now I listen to it," Vale replied. Daniel watched as she walked back into the hall. Her steps calm, her shoulders steady. She was still the same strong figure. But now, she was something more. That night, across hundreds of systems, small changes began. Plans for fair trade, discussions about equal voice. Ideas once ignored were now being shared. On Earth, messages arrived from the Union Council, inviting more observers, more thinkers, more human voices. Daniel received the call from Earth's central office. The screen showed a woman from the Earth. "Diplomatic Council. We've reviewed your reports," she said. "The Union has changed, and you've been at the center of it." "I just did what was right," Daniel said. "And that," she replied, "is why we want you to stay." Earth is being asked to lead a new committee, a peaceful one. "We need someone who can balance power and fairness." Daniel looked out the window. The stars shone brightly across the dark sky. "I'll do it," he said, "but only if everyone gets a seat at the table." The woman smiled. "That's exactly what they're hoping for." The grand chamber of the Union Council looked different now. The walls were the same. The light still glowed in soft blues and whites, but the energy inside had changed. It no longer felt cold and distant. There was something warmer in the air, a sense of cooperation. A quiet hope. At the center of the room stood a new table. It wasn't round, and it wasn't long. It was built in layers, like steps, with space for everyone. No one sat higher. No one sat lower. It was designed by a human, but approved by all. Daniel stood beside the table, reviewing the last details before the meeting. His voice had not become louder, but it had become respected. And even those who once ignored Earth now listened when he spoke. Minna walked over and handed him a small data tablet. "This is the agenda. You're chairing the session today." Daniel smiled. "Are you sure I won't mess it up?" Minna raised her eyebrow. "You already changed the shape of the table. I think you'll be fine." Delegates began arriving. Some moved slowly, others floated. Some came from desert worlds. Others came from worlds made of water and clouds. They all had different ways of speaking, thinking, and living, but they had come to talk, not to control. Vale entered last. Her steps were still proud, her presence still strong. But her face had softened. She made her way to her seat and gave Daniel a respectful nod. Once everyone was in place, Daniel stood. "Thank you all for being here," he said. "This is the first meeting under the new Unity Charter. Everyone has a voice. Everyone gets heard. Let's begin." The first item was a proposal from a small planet called Yera. It was a peaceful world, often overlooked in the past. But now, they were asking for shared technology to help clean their polluted rivers. The old council might have laughed, but now, no one did. A delegate from a large planet called Vorkin stood and said, "We have a similar system. We will share our designs." The Yeran representative smiled with joy. Then a planet called Belus asked for more education exchanges. Earth had already started sending teachers and books. Now others wanted to join the program. Daniel listened, took notes, and helped guide the discussions. There were disagreements, of course, but they were solved with reason, not threats. By the third hour, a real sense of peace was growing. Delegates leaned in when others spoke. Ideas were shared. Stories were told. Vale raised her hand to speak. "I have something to add," she said. The room grew quiet. She stood slowly and spoke with calm strength. "In the past, Therix led with power. We believed that strength meant correctness. But now I understand true strength comes from balance, from listening, from allowing others to rise without fear." She looked at Daniel. "We thank Earth for reminding us of that." Daniel nodded. "We thank Therix for changing with us." No one clapped, but every delegate showed quiet approval in their own way. Some blinked slowly. Others waved their antennae. One hummed a deep tone that meant respect. The meeting continued for hours, but it did not feel long. By the end, new agreements were made. A peaceful trade pact was signed. New laws to prevent exploitation were passed, and Earth was officially chosen to co-chair the Ethics and Culture Council, with Therix as the second co-chair. When the meeting ended, Daniel stepped outside the hall. The stars above the Union base were clearer tonight. He took a deep breath and sat on a low bench near the observation deck. Minna joined him. "You did it," she said. "We did it," Daniel replied. There was silence for a moment. The stars moved slowly in the black sky. Far away, ships crossed between systems, carrying news of what had happened today. "I used to think no one cared what Earth said," Daniel added, "but maybe they were just waiting for someone to speak. In the right way." Minna smiled. "Not with anger, not with pride, just with fairness." He nodded. Val appeared nearby. She did not interrupt. She stood quietly, watching the stars. Then she walked closer. "There is something I must tell you," she said. "Before I arrived on this base, I thought humans were soft, too emotional, unready. And now," Daniel asked, "now I see you are something else," Vale said. "You carry history on your shoulders. You speak calmly even when challenged. That is not softness. That is discipline." Daniel gave a small smile. "We learned it the hard way." Vale stepped forward and held out her hand. Daniel accepted it. "Whatever comes next," she said, "Therix and Earth will face it side by side." Minna looked at them both. "That sounds like peace." Vale nodded. "It is the beginning of it." The stars shimmered above. The Union Hall glowed quietly behind them. Inside, a new kind of leadership had been born, not with power, but with fairness, not with pride, but with patience. A human had walked into a council where no one listened to his kind, and now he sat at the table where everyone was finally equal. The message would travel to every corner of the galaxy. Humans were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the oldest, but when the time came, they stood tall and reminded the stars what it meant to lead with wisdom.